Naomi, thank you for joining me in the SAINTCOn hallway.
Love being in this hallway. Let's chitter about privacy.
Yeah, chitter about anything.
Yeah.
First time for SAINTCOn?
It is.
What's your thoughts?
Mountains are stunning. I didn't realize how much I loved mountains until I walked out and it's just right there in front of me. Yeah. I love it. It's beautiful.
Kind of aggressive.
Yeah.
You picked a good time of the year, right?
It's just beautiful. Just stunning. Yeah. You guys live in a beautiful place.
Yeah. It's nice. What's your thoughts on SAINTCOn so far?
It's great. I didn't expect that there'd be such a giant conference here in Provo, Utah.
Right.
And it's not just a one-day event and a few people come. No, it's a 5-day event where like over 1,000 people come. This is a really cool event.
Right. And you just finished speaking.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you think it went?
A lot of people had a lot of questions about how they could improve their privacy afterwards. So
Weird.
That's
why? I don't understand why they would ever.
It
seems like they just deviated off of what you're talking.
Absolutely. My talk was about opera. No, so I gave a presentation basically explaining why I think the hacker community is uniquely positioned to make a huge difference to the lived freedom of billions of people in the world. And I don't think they quite realize how unique they are with their, history of activism, this cultural history that is all about, advocating for people who can't advocate for themselves, the incredible success they've had throughout history in speaking truth to power and holding large corporations and governments accountable and, enforcing better standards across governments and industry. They just have this rich history of success there. Then there's the technical expertise. There's a chasm, right? We're all using technology that gets easier and easier to use as we go along, but fewer and fewer people understand how it works, right? And there's still this community. They want to know how everything works. They want to break apart every tool and figure out how the components fit together. And then they want to reconfigure those components to make something else that it wasn't intended to do. This is such a beautiful community of curious minds who want to understand everything that they're using. That's what we need right now, because we need more transparency into what governments and corporations are doing with our data. Because we have this myth of consent right now, where we're all being told that, oh, you agreed to this. You agreed to this world where you no longer have control over who gets access to your most personal information. I didn't agree to that. And I don't think most people agree to that, because when you ask them, would you consent to this? They will say, no, I don't want someone getting my, naked photos or my sensitive messages or my, personal emails or corporate emails or anything. They just don't understand that this stuff is being taken. They don't understand how the tech they're using works. So I think that this hacker community, they can, in the same way that people are finding bugs, vulnerabilities, disclosing these practices of insecurities, we can start understanding what data is being exfiltrated, start finding hidden surveillance mechanisms in the devices we're using, start to call that out and push back against this culture of compliance, that this is okay. It's not okay simply because your users don't understand how this stuff works. This is not okay. And the people who don't understand it, they're often most vulnerable to this stuff because they don't realize that they're being exploited. And so this community is beautiful, and I'm so excited that there are a lot of people who are interested in this topic and who wanted to get involved, because I think privacy is disappearing at an alarming rate, and they're the vanguard of privacy accelerationism. They're the people who can lead the charge and really make a difference. So I'm super excited to see people eager to get involved with that.
Yeah, I sat there and listened to your talk, and I was like, she's very passionate about this.
She is very ranty. Why is she shouting at us?
The enthusiasm is very engaging, right? Like it's very clear that you're passionate about it. And when somebody asks a question, it's not like, oh, it's off my talk track and I'm an inch deep. It's like, nope, you asked me a question and here's your 7-layer burrito. It's all coming.
I'm 600 videos deep and thousands and thousands and thousands of just educational content that took years and years and years and years of research into it. So yeah, this is a topic that I don't think is most people's full-time job. And it shouldn't be. We as a society should not be expected to be experts in all of this. And yet we've come to a point where we have to be if we want to reclaim any semblance of control over our digital lives. So I think that the experts like the people at this conference who can help with that educational awareness and, it's easier for them to understand these technical concepts. They're the people we need to rally around this cause because they can help so many people in society. I just think they'd have such a huge impact.
Yeah. How did you get started initially into this? You're an everyday citizen, and one day, you're talking years and years and years, but there was a start. Like what point were you like, privacy?
Yeah. Okay. So it's kind of happened in hindsight, I can piece together the story, but it never really works like that. It's probably a culmination of all these different things. I was super passionate about economics for a really long time. And when crypto arose, we started to see these emerging economic systems. And I was like, this is interesting because I'm looking around the world at really corrupt countries that are using access to monetary tools as this weapon against the population. And I was like, if we could have alternative digital systems, that could open up a lot of use cases to people. So I got super interested in that space and just how decentralized networks could enable censorship resistance, how using tools this technology that started to emerge that was disseminating power instead of having this kind of centralized Web 2.0 model that accumulated power. I didn't like that. I don't like this society kind of converging into singular entities because I think it gets very difficult for individuals to push back. It gets to a tipping point where it's like individuals lose too much power and society kind of it gets really scary, right? So I was looking at these distributed systems and I'm like, oh, this is all great stuff and censorship resistant, and it can't be shut down and all this. And then I started to think, wait, if I don't know how to use the internet privately, these tools are useless to me because you can have a tool that says we're censorship resistant, you can use it, no one can ever shut it down. If an authoritarian regime wants to target you because they can see plainly on the internet you're using this tool that they don't want you to have access to, you're all hope's gone. And so I started to realize I had this asymmetry in my life where I had no idea how the tech I was using worked. And it really bothered me because I wanted to make better choices. I understood there was an issue and there were things going on that I know I wouldn't quite be okay with, but I didn't quite know how it all worked and how the infrastructure of the internet works. I just didn't get any of this stuff. And I think it was Snowden tweeted something where he recommended some privacy tools. He was like, yeah, I use Signal and I never use email because it's an inherently insecure protocol. And I'm kind of like, oh, I'm writing all this down. Like, interesting. It's inherently insecure. I wonder what makes the protocol insecure. I should dive into this and figure it out. And then he says, I never use Wi-Fi because there are publicly accessible access points, maps of access points on the internet where you can literally use it to track people's whereabouts and all this stuff. And I'm like, what's an access point?
Right.
Right. And so then I stumble on wiggle.net.
Yeah.
And the team behind Wiggle, they've become such good friends of mine. I put out this video where I'm like, listen, I'm going to go down a rabbit hole, guys, because I'm talking about decentralized tech. And suddenly I put out this video that's like, Snowden does this tweet about access points. I don't know what an access point is. And then I'm like, so I've got this router, this modem. I don't know what the difference between these two things are. And I research and I explain. I'm like, here, guys, if you want to know what the difference is, here's what I figured out. Every tech person who's watching it is just like, this person is an idiot. This is years and years and years ago. This is where I started, I'm just starting to understand how these different things work. And then I say hey, there's this website, it's called Wiggle. And you can search for people's SSID. You don't know what an SSID is, do you? Well, neither did I. Here's what an SSID is. So I'm going through the same. The video gets 1 million views because apparently there's a huge swath of the population who are just normies like me. Right. And who were like, yeah, I have no idea what any of this stuff is. Thanks
somebody being like SSID and they're like, what is an SSID?
SSID.
What is this?
Secret, secure, infotainment data. I don't know.
Oh, my Wi-Fi name.
Oh, Wi-Fi name. Who would have thought? So I put out this video and then the Wiggle team reached out to me. They're like, we made the website. they started fact-checking a lot of my videos after that. They were like, listen, we're in this community. And they were such an amazing resource for me. Because once I'm in that rabbit hole, I want to know everything. I'm like, okay, so this is how Wi-Fi works. How does this other thing I use work? And dive into it. And I send it to them and I'd be like, is this like idiotic? It doesn't make sense. They'd be like, well, here are the slight tweaks. But yeah, you kind of covered it in super basic terms that normal people can understand, probably because at every step of the way, you didn't understand and you had to figure out, okay, well, how does that connect to that? And so, yeah, that's how I started. And I've been doing this for years and years now. I really pivoted from decentralized tech to privacy tech. And it's not because I still think decentralized tech is amazing, but I think that it's really pressing that people start to understand their privacy leaks and how it makes them vulnerable, because increasingly our data is being weaponized against us in ways people don't understand. They think that I don't care about this because this company's trying to get me to buy this new pair of shoes. I don't care about that. And they don't understand that this data is used to sell to people who don't just want to sell you consumer products, but to hostile entities who want to put content in front of you to get you to think in a certain way, to hate certain types of people. We don't realize how vulnerable we are and how impressionable and how many people are vying for our attention. Like when we look at a feed, a lot of us probably think this stuff magically appeared and it has no relation to who I am as an individual.
It's just what my friends like and who I follow.
And it's just what the website thinks is good stuff right now. No, it's curated just for you. So whose agenda is it serving? And that's the question we're not asking. So when we come to these conclusions, we watch that YouTube video and then it shows us this next video. It's like what to watch next. Right. And we think, thank you. I did want to watch that next. They know that. And you've got someone paying to put that in front of you. So I think we have to start being more aware of the fact that we are at the behest of people's agenda, that they have amazing technology at their disposal in order to assert control over other people. I just want people to have freedom, to be able to make decisions autonomously, to retain the right to live their authentic selves. I want to make sure we protect that as a society. And so I think that means being more judicious about what tools we use, about what information we hand over, and fighting for principles that we believe make a good society. And I don't think people being exploited through practices they don't understand is at all good for society. We need transparency, accountability, and to reassert ourselves.
So the ability to have the freedom to choose to make sure that data all gets rolled up into these data brokers so we can get profiled at the border.
Exactly. Yeah. You make that choice for yourself. It's like if you
don't make that choice. It was a terrible example.
The choice is yours and you can embrace that option. Yeah. I mean, we have so many more choices now than we did 10 years ago. Even since I started looking at this space, I'm saying, well, what are the alternatives? We're trying to use these tools and these are the only ones really available. And you realize there's some obscure company, but it's super janky. No one's going to be able to understand how to use that. But fast forward, today, there are amazing tools out there. You don't need to use the companies that have the 90% market share that are taking all user data as part of their business model. You can just opt for a more private service that respects their users and says in big letters on their page, we're not sharing your data with anyone, or it's end-to-end encrypted, we can't even access it. Just opt for those. There's so many alternatives we now have. And so I just now try to seek out those alternatives, figure out if they're good. If I enjoy them, then I try to teach others how to use them, and I just show people how to make the switch, because I think every choice we make that's a little bit better improves our lives. So I just want people to find those low-hanging fruit, those easy choices, and just start to switch them out. You know, the same way you go to a grocery store and, you could just consume whatever they put in front of you, and maybe they say, we want you to have this lard and this seed oil and this pound of sugar and this incredibly addictive deep fried thing. And we could be like, great, I'm just going to consume exactly what you've put in front. Or we could be more judicious and say, oh, well, I actually want to seek out the beans aisle. Or I actually want to find that grass-fed option. Or I actually want to, we can actually make better choices with what we consume, not just in our bodies, but in our minds and in our digital life. We can just start opt for things that I think are healthier. Yeah.
What was that moment so you're learning, economics and then privacy, but what was that to like step out, right? So at the end of your talk, you're saying, do these things. And a lot of those things are personal choices you can just make, switch out consumer items. And then some of those require, you got to step out, right? You got to be an advocate for these to other people. You got to get in front of Congress or whatever that is to some extreme extent or somewhere in between. But how do you step, how does one go about actually like doing that? And I'm not saying it's for everybody, but
just start with yourself. That's all you need to worry about, because people will see your choices and they will be inspired. A lot of the stuff that we do in society, we're just kind of on autopilot taking cues because we're social animals. And so if that person seems okay with it, okay, I should be okay with it. And that's how we've come to normalize a lot of atrocities, because we see people who seem okay with things and we don't push back, because if they're okay with it, I should be okay. And they don't quite understand that, well, that person doesn't actually know what's going on. So they're not okay with it. They just don't realize what's happening. And so I think just by being more aware than your peers of different things, you can start making different choices. You know, use Signal, use Proton, use Brave, whatever your privacy choice is, find them for yourself, do your own research, find the things that you like, but implement them. And then if people are like, hey, what's your number? You can say, oh, well, here's my Signal username. If you're on Signal,
right.
You know, you can, and maybe that generates a conversation. Maybe you don't even convert them right off the bat. That's okay. People have their own journey and their own pace, but you can let them know it exists. You can let them know why it's better. You can let them know why your personal privacy preferences are in line with that product. And you can also let them know that if they force you to use an insecure method, they're actually hurting you. And that's something a lot of people don't realize. I found in my life, people will say, well, you know, I'll message you on SMS. And I kind of have these two choices. Well, three choices, really. I could say, great, here's my SMS number, and just go with the flow. I can assert my preferences and say, actually, I'm tired of handing over all of my data to telecommunications companies. I've just decided that's a boundary for me, and I'm not going to do it anymore. And so if you want to contact me, you can use this platform. And see how that goes. Right. You can try to be in the middle and try to educate and try to maybe find an alternative. Like, okay, you don't have this end-to-end encrypted platform, maybe there's an alternative. You can find that middle ground. But too often we don't speak up for ourselves. We just go along with what other people want. We want to be agreeable. Right. We want to accommodate. They want our number. Okay, we'll just give them our number. And more, I've realized that it's okay to have boundaries in my life. There are some people that have just refused to switch over to these platforms that I feel like pretty strongly at this stage that I want these security preferences in my life. And if people are going to force me to degrade the security that I think is necessary for me, that often becomes a reflection of our relationship as well. You know, if they're not willing to respect my choices, it's kind of like being a vegan and then your friend says, let's go to this steakhouse and I'm going to force you to eat this
you have
steak.
To eat it.
Yeah, or the opposite. You know, maybe you're a carnivore and someone forces you to go to a vegan restaurant. You're like, no, it's too many carbs. It's against what I'm in line with. Whatever it is, I think that individuals have the right to assert boundaries, figure out their own value system, and be okay with voicing it and standing up for it. And they don't have to be so agreeable. And it doesn't mean you have to be like a jerk about it. You don't have to be like, I'm not going to do that. Like, you're terrible. Come my way or the highway. But you can make a good case. There are lots of different tactics you can use to try to bring people over. And if it ultimately comes down to it and people aren't willing to respect your choices, you can decide, okay, do I want to give them this concession and, basically downgrade my preferences, or am I okay just like not communicating? And there's some people in my life that, yeah, I'll talk to them on insecure platforms. You know, maybe they're elderly, maybe they're less technologically adept, and maybe I'm just like, listen, that person's so important, I'm willing to make that sacrifice. Doesn't apply to everyone. There are some people who won't make the who won't move to secure platforms, and I just decide that's okay, and I just don't have to communicate with them. So I figure out like who am I willing to compromise my boundaries for, and who am I not? And I just live by that a lot of the time these days.
Awesome. If somebody wanted to approach you and talk to you, but maybe they're nervous, clearly there's a vein of privacy here, right? At any point they can come talk to privacy.
Yeah.
You pull that ripcord, you're going to go, right? Like you got a mission,
Press
you're passionate about it. But is there any other commonality, and you do not have to answer this, is violating any privacy, but there's something that maybe there's a kinship there that they can talk about that doesn't feel like you're up on this pedestal and they can come chat with you.
Anyone can come chat with me. I am reading every comment on every post I put out. I am very accessible. I run a nonprofit, and my nonprofit's mission is to advance freedom through technology. And so I spend half my time fundraising and half my time researching and half my time the math doesn't add up,
Making
but I feel like
and
everything, there are a lot of hats there. But essentially, my aim is to make sure that I get educational content in the hands of many people as possible. And sometimes this involves one-on-one, personally walking them through in the comments section this issue that they're facing. I try my hardest, and I don't get to all of them, obviously, but I try my hardest to be accessible and for people to come to me and ask questions because I want them to use these tools. I want them to be empowered in their lives. I want them to be able to make better choices. And sometimes they don't know who to trust. And for some reason, they've said, okay, well, Naomi seems like she's looking out for us. Maybe she's like not nefarious. Maybe she's someone that I can go to because her advice seems pretty good. I'm constantly relying on people as well. There are people who hold me accountable. If you're someone who knows more about this than I do, I can only do so much. So I have people writing to me saying like, hey, Naomi, actually there's this other product you didn't mention. They're great. Look into them. And I'll be like, great, I'm going to check them out. Or they'll say, this other product, it was sold to this company. You might not have known that. Maybe you should change that in a video. And I'm like, great, thank you. So there becomes this community-sourced information system now around the content I'm putting out, where it's no longer just me, where people are asking me questions, but I see people in the community fielding questions. Sometimes I'll go through comments and someone will ask something, and I'll be about to write, and then I'll say like, oh, this other person already responded, and it's great. It's a great response. It's what I would have said. So even if I'm not available, there are so many people out there who want to help you make better decisions that you can go to. But I do try to be accessible. Just come talk to me about anything, whatever issue you're having in this space. I'm here to help. That's my entire mission. So please take me up on it.
What's next for you?
In terms of like content on the channel, or
It's open-ended.
What is next for me? All right. Amplifying this message. I started a movement the other week. So I realized that the first start of my privacy journey was me just deciding that I wanted to make better choices in my life. And then I was like, well, I'm going to explain to others how to replicate what I did. And I'm going to explain what I discovered. And that was enough. I was like, if people want to learn from this, then they could watch this and follow along. That was good enough. I just wanted that educational stuff available. I'm not of that mindset anymore, because the more I dive into this rabbit hole and the more I see what's at stake, if we don't start changing the trajectory of society, the more scared I am about our future to retain autonomy and freedom in society. So now it's become kind of a race against the clock. If we think about surveillance capabilities from corporations and governments alike, and often it's quite insidious the way that they kind of, there's this revolving door and there's a lot of lobbying and a lot of stuff going on there. But surveillance capabilities are basically doubling every 2 years, along with technological advancements. And I'm not seeing privacy tools advance at the same rate. I'm not seeing privacy awareness advance at the same rate, with people protecting themselves and amping up their own measures. And I'm realizing that these scales, the balance of power, are tilting further and further away from individuals. That's scary to me. So now I've realized that it's not enough for me to just put the information out there and people go to it if they want. I'm being vocal. I'm being loud. I'm telling people to act now. I'm trying to encourage more people to build these tools. I'm trying to encourage more people to get these tools into more hands. I think that we can't afford to wait anymore. I think we need to act now and start to change the culture around privacy, because right now, if you talk to the average person, their response is going to be, I have nothing to hide. Their response is going to diminish the importance of this, and that is actually insidious right now. We need more people on our team fighting for this, not people fighting against us, telling us this is unimportant. This is the difference between life and death for certain sectors of society. If you're an activist, if you're pushing back against some authoritarian regime, there are so many people who use privacy tools all over the world who rely on those tools, but we are dangerously close to a society where We no longer have developers building tools because there's no funding around it. No one's supporting them. There's no market share because everyone's using the tools that are spying on them. They're afraid to use tools because there's this veneer of being a criminal associated with privacy. And we're just like fueling this narrative where legislation is trying to outlaw privacy. End-to-end encryption bans come up in a bill every few months all over the world. There's mandated backdoors in all kinds of applications that governments are trying to push right now. We are dangerously close to getting to a situation where we have diminished the importance of privacy so much that no one is fighting for it, and we are going to lose the tools that we currently have. Tools we currently have are scant. We not only need to protect them, but we need to accelerate the building of these tools, the proliferation of these tools, the awareness around them, and we need to change culture. I think we need to do that real fast because governments are real close to taking that away. AI technology is real close to making corporations, these entities that just have incredible omniscience. I'm not sure that a free society can survive these companies and entities and governments having omniscience about everything in our lives. And so if we want to protect our future selves, I think we need to be preserving these tools now. And that means fighting to shift culture and the perception around privacy. So that's what I'm doing right now. I term it privacy accelerationism because I'm a techno-optimist. I don't think tech is our enemy at all. I don't want people to have to throw out their devices in order to have privacy and live a modern lifestyle. I actually think that technology is what's going to save us. Encryption technology is amazing. This is our best tool, and we can have this interconnected life, taking advantage of all the amazing people around the world who are doing cool things, and we can keep up with that and access information like never before. And I don't think it requires us giving up all of our privacy to do so. We can choose better products when we do this. We can embrace privacy tools when we do this, and we can do it on our own terms. And so, that's what I am trying to push right now and remind people that tech is neutral currently. We're really going down a path where it's being used for a lot of surveillance and totalitarian oppression. We're seeing it ramp up all across the globe. Some countries are far more advanced in this than others, but the trajectory is the same across the board. We need to shift that. The path could be over here. We just got to make better choices. We just got to build better tools. We've got to advocate for different policies in the companies we work for. We've got to, advocate for different policies in the countries where we live. And so, we absolutely have the power to change this. We just got to get people to care. So I'm just focused on getting people to care right now.
That's great. So there's a lot of things you listed, or directionality of things that people can or maybe should do, depending on perspective. If you had to pick one generically to tell people, what do they start with?
Start with the easiest thing is your browser. It's the gateway to the internet. And I think Chrome has like an 80 to 90% market share. And it's one of the most egregious privacy violators out there. It's collecting everything that you're doing. And so just switch that out. You're not even going to notice a difference. So
and for the basic understanding, that includes your mobile phone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, because a lot of people think browser sometimes is just desktop. But clearly there's a browser on your phone as well.
Absolutely. And so let's start with the lowest hanging fruit. Okay. So just that browser, I would use something like Brave, or if you're using Firefox and you like tweaking settings, you can, make their privacy more robust as well. But I think out of the box, Brave probably has the best privacy. Mullvad browser actually, I think, is really awesome option. Safari is even better than a lot of these others. But stop using Edge, stop using Chrome, and that's the easiest tool. Then you can add that app to your phone, as you said, and start using that as your mobile browsing tool. But then you have all these in-app instances, and people don't quite realize that you're using their internet browser through the Instagram app. You click on a link and you think, oh, I'm going to a browser. No, Instagram is giving you an instance where they're actually monitoring all your activity from there on out. So if you click on a link and on like Facebook or one of these apps, and you just kind of get lost in your rabbit hole of click here, click here, click here, keep in mind that company is probably collecting everything you're doing. Right. So another thing you can do after you've downloaded a different browser is you can set your preferences to open by default. Always open this browser. Or you can start being cognizant of when you click something within an app, did that open my browser I have as my default, or is that just giving me an in-app instance of like browsing? So you start to go deeper into the rabbit hole, but browser is a super easy thing to start with.
Got it. So we have actionable things we can do.
Yeah.
We don't know where to start. Browser.
Just do browser. That's great.
If you're already past that, you had a shotgun list, including step out.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. So if we're going to do rapid fire, you got your browser, then you got your search engine, get rid of Google and use, you could do Brave, you could use Mojeek, you could do like pre-search. There are like countless more private browsers. Start Page is a private front end for Google. Messaging. Use something like Signal instead of SMS or social media when you're talking to someone. There are countless private messaging apps as well. Threema is another really great example. Other apps that I haven't yet dived into, so I won't recommend them here, but lots of very interesting options. VPN, make sure it's a good VPN, but you should use a VPN. So Malvad, Proton, they're great. Be very careful of VPNs that give lots of affiliate fees for people who sign up to them.
If it's on a YouTube video.
These companies generally have a lot of money to be paying out to these affiliates. You got to question how they're getting that money. There tends to be a really insidious culture in VPNs. A lot of VPNs and VPN apps are just data shells. They're just shell companies collecting data about your activities. So not all VPNs are legit. Some of them are malware, legit malware. Be careful. But I like Malvad. I like Proton. There are a bunch of others you can use. OS, phone OS, Graphene. You could use a graphene phone. It's basically AOSP, but it's a fork that's been hardened, and privacy is amazing on it. They give you granular control over telemetry that gets sent off. You can literally download an app that asks for permission to access the internet, and within the app, you can just say, like, the operating system, you can just say, actually, don't let it ever access the internet. And it's just such a good tool. It has scopes for things like storage and contacts. So when an app says you can't download us unless you give us access to all your contacts, think about what's happening to your contacts. You've literally just revealed hundreds of your closest friends and colleagues. You've revealed their home address and their email and their birthday and their legit name and their phone number. You've just handed that off to some company who wanted it. So you can set contact scopes where you can say, okay, I actually am only giving this app this list, or I'm giving them access to this fake list, and I'm not actually giving the app anyone in my contacts list. So Graphene is just such an amazing tool. They need more contributors. They need more resources. I think they're just the most private phone operating system you can get. If you're using Windows or Mac, you may want to look into hardening those systems to block telemetry and all the other egregious things going on, or you can switch to Linux and find a good distro.
Yeah, they'll magically break sometimes when you block telemetry.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? It's like, I don't need internet for this, but why does it suddenly not work when I don't give it internet?
Right.
So yeah, there's just like a long list of things you can go to. The next thing I would say is unique identifiers. And so we tend to just have one cell number and one email that we give to every company we deal with, every government agency we deal with, every medical provider, every friend. And we got to ask, why are we giving all these things, these unique identifiers that can literally be used to aggregate all of our activities? Keep in mind, every service you've ever used, they could be involved in a data breach. I think it was the president of...
I'm sure they have.
Yeah, head of Cisco said, like, there's former president or CEO of Cisco said, there's two types of companies in the world, those that have been hacked and those that don't yet realize they've been hacked. Right. So understand that, yes, all this information is out there and people are correlating it and figuring out like your social graph and all your activities, your daily movements from this information just by aggregating these unique identifiers. So yeah, use VoIP, different VoIP number for everything. Some great services, Cloaked, MySudo. You can just spin up a VoIP number. You don't have to give them your real cell number.
But then some of these services won't accept VoIP numbers.
Yeah, and so there's only a handful of them. It's very few. But the ones who don't accept VoIP numbers, buy a prepaid SIM that is you pay for with cash that isn't tied to your identity. You can put it in your phone and you can use it to sign up for that service. Then you can port it to VoIP. And now that's a VoIP number. They're not going to check for like another 6 months to a year, so you don't have to worry about it. When they do, say, oh, this is no longer a legit phone number, add a new one, or you can do it again. What's it cost you? It's probably cost you like $5 for the the number that you've never ended up using. And if you want to be even more sneaky, once you have that that cell number, because you don't want to lose it. You don't want to.
Right. It might be your two-factor, unfortunately.
Exactly. Ugh. So I think porting it to VoIP is a great option. Keep in mind that some companies don't support VoIP because there's different protocols for short message code versus normal SMS. And so you do have to test it. I would test these systems. I haven't had an issue when I've ported, and I think actually Google Voice is amazing. They accept all short codes, so that's a VoIP provider you could use to port numbers to.
I found workarounds too by not, if it won't accept it, if some have an option for call it. And
exactly.
so
That's
you
the
do
other thing.
Call it, and then
I can
you put in
receive
the
that.
code.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are all kinds of workarounds for that. Don't feel like you need to just give up when they demand this thing and think, okay, I have to give it to them. It's the hacker culture, right? What I love about this community is companies put out products or governments put out services or whatever, and they say, this is the intended use case for this thing. And then the hacker community comes along and they're like, hold my beer. They break it apart. They're like, I'm going to use it for this other thing. Ha! And it's cool. They realize all these workarounds. They figure out the cracks in the systems. They use that to protect people, actually, a lot of the time. They can use that to discover vulnerabilities so that we can have better security. We can improve situations. They use it for nefarious things too. Let's be honest. Hackers are doing all of this across the board, but we can apply this mindset to everything in our life. How do I hack this situation so that I can get around it? And this thing that this company is demanding, is there an alternative? Most of the time there is. And so I think it's up to people like those at this conference to figure out what are those alternatives. Let's find the cracks in the system. Let's teach others what these cracks are so we can all take advantage of it in this culture that's increasingly surveilled and controlled. Like, let's figure out actually how we can work around this and still retain autonomy and freedom in this environment.
Awesome. Well, I'm grateful that you were able to come out here to SAINTCON.
It's been great.
I'm grateful that you were able to come speak to us. And I was also grateful I was able to catch your talk and take down some notes. And, hopefully you motivated.
Don't rant so much during talks.
No, keep ranting. The passion is authentic. It's more meaningful and impactful. Like, you really care about it, and that is imprintable. So keep doing that.
I hope people are inspired, because if I could change one person's mind, if there's one person in that audience that is like, yeah, actually, this is an issue and I'm going to take steps to improve the situation. Great. That's one more person we have on our team.
Well, good. We did it, because I took down some notes of some actionable steps for me. So everybody else, ignore. You don't have to do anything. We got the one.
Got someone. Yeah.
No, please take actionable steps. And thank you for coming to SAINTCON, and thank you for chatting with me in SAINTCON hallway.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been such a wonderful conference. I met so many amazing people, and I'm just grateful to be here.
Thank you.